is the College Football Connection podcast with Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reed on 101 ESPN.
As the quarterback speculation swirls. Greetings, everybody, and welcome into a different kind of College Football Connection overtime presentation for you, exclusively on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel and, of course, 101ESPN.com. I am Bradford Bruns. We are here earlier in the week for the purpose of taking a deep dive into Missouri-South Carolina top 25 matchup beginning at 3:15 p.m. at Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday. We're about 48 hours out, so of course those initial availability reports have been made available courtesy of the SEC, or should we say mandated by the SEC, and there's a lot of conjecture as to what that means for one Brady Cook, having missed last weekend's game, of course, that 30-23 victory versus OU, not manning center, not getting the start for the Tigers in a game for the first time since late 2021. The combination of ailments kept him out of that contest. Drew Pine came in and filled in admirably in half number 2, at least, leading the Tigers to 3 touchdown drives. And yet going into this matchup versus the Gamecocks, winners of 3 in a row on the SEC side of the ledger, having knocked off 2 straight top 25 opponents in succession. Is there a glimmer of hope, after all, that Cook could dress, could suit up, and can play effectively in that setting on Saturday? If you listened earlier this morning on 101 ESPN to TMA, you heard the guys on that particular program really deconstruct some of Gabe DeArmond, the friend of the show, his comments about whether Cook may indeed be available after all for this all-important contest. Listen, when you're talking about somebody who's trying to not only come back from the high ankle sprain sustained in that homecoming triumph over Auburn, what a story, what a contest and performance that was, but also the wrist ailment, whatever the diagnosis is in that regard, that was suffered just the following week against Alabama. That 1-2 punch, no pun intended, knocked him out of the festivities, out of having any chance of competing against the Sooners. And you're going to need, with all due respect to number 6, to have any semblance, any remote possibility against the Gamecocks here in this situation. Cook must play, but he must be able to play as well. That's case in point as to why Missouri is at present a 13.5-point underdog. Now, tonight there will be a further update, but let's be quite candid about this. In all likelihood, we're not going to get much in the way of illuminating insight from the head coach Eli Drinkwitz before 90 minutes leading up to kickoff on Saturday afternoon, when you have to release that list of inactives. And as much stock as you want to put into the quarterback position, as well you should, for the Missouri Tigers, I would venture to say of equal importance in this game is the status of the offensive line. And the offensive line is going to, out of necessity, be in flux as well. To wit, Connor Tollison, one of the developments that kind of went under the radar in the midst of that thrilling, exhilarating come-from-behind victory just a week ago at Faurot Field. He was rolled up on during the course of Theo Weiss's first of 2 touchdowns on the evening, sustained a season-ending knee injury. Now, Drake Heismeyer played incredibly well in his absence for a quarter plus. The redshirt senior, though, having to go into the other Columbia, being the captain, in a sense, of the O-line, and trying to make do, trying to navigate all of the different elements there in play with the crazy fans, with the raucous atmosphere, that's going to be exceedingly tough. You don't just replace a Tollison, somebody who had started the last 22 games at center, 34 overall, did the redshirt junior out of Jackson. That is somebody you just can't replace. But at the same time, Missouri's ground game, and you're certainly going to need a vaunted one at that if you hope to even compete against the Gamecocks, it is slowly getting better from an injury standpoint, too. Nate Noel, not listed on the injury report for the first time since early October, and this is somebody who has been on a clear pitch count over the last several games, right? You saw him in cameos against the Sooners, in cameos the prior 2 weeks as well. He missed the UMass game altogether, and it was not the same individual who was able to be the bell cow versus Boston College and versus, of course, Auburn, respectively, with the 22 and the 24 carries. That's going to happen when you're dealing with a back ailment and also some sort of a foot issue in his own right. but no longer being probable as well in being able to take more of the lion's share of those carries, spelling Jamal Roberts, relegating Marcus Carroll, quite frankly, to more of a change of pace role. That is going to behoove the Tigers in this particular environment because you're going to have to play a ball possession sort of game. Right now, the over-under in this game, it's not expected to be spectacular. It's probably going to creep over the number of 40.5 that you saw versus OU. But these two defenses can flat out get after it, hat on hat. And to me, regardless of whether Pine plays, regardless of whether Cook is able to return as well, the determining factor here is going to be just how well Missouri's offensive line can acquit itself against SC. Because when you have a Kyle Kennard on that side of the football, an NFL-ready prospect, if ever there were one, for South Carolina. He's coming off of the edge. He has an SEC high, tied for the SEC lead, 9.5 sacks. This is somebody whose ferocious rush is going to stymie Mizzou. No doubt about it. You're going to have to add an extra blocker, get some of that chipping going. Even the backs are going to have to pick it up out of the backfield because the way to be able to somewhat compromise this South Carolina defense, throw some screens out there, get your guys out in the flat, and Noel's health, improved at that, is going to be absolutely gargantuan in that regard. Bradford Bruns rolling along with you here on the latest edition of the College Football Connection Overtime Game Preview for week number 12. You kind of get the drill in this regard, right? My guys Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reed, they will be back tomorrow with a full preview of everything happening across the nation, but want to spend a couple more minutes talking about some of the X's and O's and other key factors for the Missouri-South Carolina matchup. So we know just how well-regarded the Gamecocks defense is. This is a unit that has propelled this group to new heights in 2024. Shane Beamer was in a lot of trouble, all right, entering the campaign. And to sit there now and realize that South Carolina has 6 wins to its credit and was in games as well against an Alabama, for example. Lost that one by just 2 points. If not for the Ole Miss loss, you're talking about a team that could well be in the thick of the CFP conversation as well. But right now, the ground game is great. The pass rush, 33 sacks overall. Will Missouri be able to fend off this group and stay in this game into the second half? Well, it would certainly do a great deal of good if you were able to get more of those immense contributions from the main guys in your vertical passing game, especially if Pine is at the controls once more. Think about just how instrumental to the victory last weekend in Columbia those catches in the fourth quarter by Weiss and Burden were. Burden has been held off of the score sheet, though, since all the way back in week number 4 versus Vanderbilt. Can you get contributions down the field from him in space, even if it's courtesy of a bubble screen, making guys miss? You know how athletic the Gamecocks D is, but is there something left there in the waning weeks of this season? And let's be honest, the college career, in all probability, for Luther Burden III. Well, hope that you've enjoyed a bit of a game preview out there as you're watching and consuming on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel, as well as 101ESPN.com. My name is Bradford Bruns. As always, appreciate your spending some time with us. We will defer to Marty and Alvin for the full look at the week number 12 festivities. But until we catch up again over the weekend with a recap, stay tuned to figure out what's happening as MIZ tries to improve to 8-2 on the season and keep alive those ever so faint CFP hopes. We'll see what materializes. Stick with us. Until next time.
You've been listening to the College Football Connection podcast with Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reed on 101 ESPN Sports Talk for St. Louis.